A wide belt sander can be an invaluable tool in a wood shop, but they can be intimidating to use, and a lot of people may not even know what they're really used for. So in this video, I'm going to be going over our sander. This video is primarily for the members in our shared shop, but the principles can be applied to any shop. I'll go over what needs to be done before using the machine, how to start and run the sander, and things you need to be thinking about while using it. So let's get into it. Now first, the purpose of this machine is, of course, for sanding. And I say that because this machine operates a lot like a planer, but it is not a thicknessing machine. It is a sanding machine, or micro flattening. The materials that we allow in our sander with the belts for the shared shop are hardwoods only. No softwoods, no sheet goods, no materials with finish or epoxy. Now some epoxy is fine. If you have knot holes that are filled or cracks or checks that have been filled with epoxy, that's perfectly fine. But if you're making a full river table or a just full epoxy table, then you'll have to get your own belt for that. And we can talk about that in a little bit. Now there's some things that you need to check before you even get to turning the machine on. First, you need to check that your board is flat, preferably jointed, then planed, then it's run through the sander. Also, you need to make sure the air compressor is on, make sure the air valve to the sander is turned in the on position, make sure the belt is tensioned and the platen is in the up position. Then you need to check that the outfeed table is level with the bed height. This can be done by adjusting the turnbuckle underneath the table. This is especially important for very long and rigid boards. If the outfeed table is set too high, you'll push your material up into the sander and you can easily ruin a belt that way. If the table is set too low and your board's too heavy, then you can end up getting some pretty bad snipe at the end. Before each use, it's also a good idea to go to our dust collector and beat on the filters a little bit or blow some compressed air into it to drop some of the loose dust down so that we keep the filters relatively clean. Now we can turn the machine on. You do this by first turning the control switch on, then hitting master start. From here, you can adjust the bed height. The bed height adjustment is powered and can be changed using this switch to the left of the infeed table. Now, in reading the height gauge, there are 5 digits. The first 2 are whole inches, and then the last 3 go down to thousandths of an inch. A couple things to note about setting the bed height is that you first really need to make sure you're using a set of calipers to measure your board thickness. Don't go off of just using a tape measure because you're not going to be nearly accurate enough. Again, you're looking at thousandths of an inch here, and so you really need to make sure you're setting it with calipers, set the height gauge to what the calipers say. But with that, you also need to keep in mind that that height gauge has been set to a brand new 100 grit belt. I say that because each belt can be a slightly different thickness. A heavier grit belt will be thicker and a finer grit belt will be thinner. Also, older belts will be thinner as they get used down. So just keep that in mind. But in general, if your board is already flat and you are using calipers to set the bed height, then you should be fine. Now that the bed height is set, you can turn the dust collector on from the remote that's hanging on the machine. To power the machine on, you first need to hit the top red button that says stop head, reset brake. Then you can power on the head using the 2 green buttons that say start head and start feed. To shut down the machine, it's just a reverse operation. You hit the stop head and stop feed buttons, turn the dust collector off, and then turn the air valve at the wall off just to prevent any leaks. And if you use the platen, make sure the platen is in the up position. Now, for how much material you can take off in each pass is generally going to be 5 to 10 thousandths of an inch. 5 thousandths of an inch is roughly the thickness of 2 sheets of paper. And of course, a lot of this depends on the grit that you're using and the board itself. Obviously, with a heavier grit, you can take off more per pass. If you're using a softer wood, like walnut or poplar, then you can usually pretty easily take off 10 thousandths of an inch. But if you're using the full width of the sander, then you'll need to step that down to 5 thousandths. Notice I said softer woods, not softwoods. Now, since we're talking thousandths of an inch, that means that this machine is a lot more particular and a lot more sensitive. So there's a lot of things that you need to watch out for while you're operating the machine. The first thing to watch is the power meter in the upper right side of the sander. This kind of shows how much the machine is pushing to get something done. It's generally going to float around 25 while it's running under no load. It's fine to let it get up above 50, but if you're getting above 75, then you need to back it off a little bit. Also, one of the biggest things is just to listen for the machine bogging down or struggling, especially squealing. If you hear squealing, then that means you're pushing it way too hard and you need to shut it down immediately. Don't wait for the material to come out the other side, because then it'll be too late. You'll have burnt a belt, and that costs a lot of money. So if you start hearing the machine squealing, just shut it down immediately, lower the bed, pull the material out, and try it again. It's also a good idea to feel the wood. If you put your bare hand on the outfeed right as it's coming out of the machine, if the wood is a little too hot to touch with your bare hand, then again, you're pushing it too hard, and the heat is going to cause the abrasive to gum up. And of course, watch for burn marks. If you're seeing burn marks coming out the other side, again, stop the machine immediately, drop it down, check the belt, and try it again. Now let's talk about the platen. Inside the cabinet of the sander, there are 3 rollers. You've got a top roller, you've got a rubber drive roller in the front, and then a steel roller in the back. The steel roller is typically what's doing most of the sanding. This is why you can get a little bit of chatter marks similar to a planer. You can't really feel them, but you can see them sometimes as you're sanding. To get rid of that, this sander is equipped with a platen. The platen is a metal bar that sits in between the bottom 2 rollers and has a layer of felt and then graphite. When in use, that will push the belt down between the 2 rollers to give it a nice smooth finish. To use the platen, all you do is rotate the handle down and align the scratch mark on the steel with one of these tick marks on the gauge. Each little tick mark on the gauge corresponds to 5/1000ths of an inch. So when you're using the platen, you first rotate the handle down to 1 tick mark past 0. That is the same as raising the bed 5/1000ths of an inch. So you lower the platen and don't adjust the bed height. You'll do that for a couple passes, and you can take the platen down to 10 to 15 thousandths. Don't really go beyond that, because then you risk deforming the felt and you can actually end up rounding your workpiece a bit. In each pass, only lower the platen 5/1000ths at a time. Once you get to 10 to 15 thousandths, or whatever your goal is, then if you need to keep sanding, you can then start raising the bed height by 5/1000ths at a time. You want to be a lot more careful with the platen, because it's creating a lot more friction and a lot more heat, and so the sander is going to be working harder. And heat always makes it more risky to burning. Once you're done, always make sure to put the platen back into the up position as far as it goes. This prevents the next person from coming in if they forget to check the platen is down and plowing their workpiece into the platen, which could ruin it. For belt selection, I recommend 100 grit or an 80 grit. 100 grit really is going to get you almost everything that you need. It's aggressive enough to not clog, but it's fine enough that you can go straight to orbital sanding after that. For the shared belts that we have, we typically aren't going to have anything above a 120 grit. This is because higher grits are just a lot more sensitive to heat buildup and clogging and burning. If you want to get your own belt, we recommend going with Klingspor, because that's what's already on the machine. Our sander's belt size is a 37 by 60. That's 37 inches wide and 60 inches in length. You'll typically want a cloth backing, and their most common abrasives are their 310, which is great for softwoods as it has an open coat, or their 311, which is really great for hardwoods or epoxies. They have lots of other abrasive choices beyond that, but you can talk to a Klingspor rep if you need something different. When you need to change a belt, you'll first release the tension, make sure the platen is in the up position, and then remove the riser block. You do that by pulling this handle straight forward, then lift the handle straight out, remove the riser block. Pull the belt straight out and set it back on the racks. When you're putting on a new belt, make sure the arrows on the inside of the belt correspond to the arrows that we've drawn on the machine. This one feeds toward the operator. Then put the riser block back in place. Make sure the handle is all the way down, and then push the handle to the left. This operates the same as any other threaded bolt, and so if you rotate it the other direction, it'll actually lift up on it. Once the riser block is back in place, then you can re-tension the belt, and you're good to go. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any other recommendations or videos that you want to see, just drop them in the comments below. Thanks.